Hello, everyone. My name is Zachary Strong. I'm a biblical scholar, an author, and a musician. And today I'm going to be exploring a very interesting topic in the medical sciences, which is near death experiences. And I'm going to be doing so from a biblical perspective and specifically a Torah perspective. So, as you might know, over the last 80 years, as medical technology has improved, more and more people are entering clinical death and then being revived from it. And ever since that started happening, a significant percentage of those people have had what is known as a near death experience, where their consciousness persisted despite them being clinically dead. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the phenomena that people have experienced in NDEs and how that maps to the biblical and Torah understanding of what lies beyond our universe. So, in today's video, I'm going to be looking at what are near-death experiences. I'm going to be outlining some similarities to Torah teachings. I'm going to be talking about the world of truth, the world that lies beyond our world. And then I'm going to be sharing a little bit of a meditation, which has been helpful for me, and I hope it'll be helpful for you. Okay, so let's just dive in. What are near-death experiences? So, at the moment, it's estimated that about 9 million people in the United States alone have had a transformative near-death experience. And scientists are still trying to wrap their minds around this because, as you might imagine, the thought for a lot of scientists that there might be, such things as a soul or a spiritual realm, it's rather inconvenient to a lot of modern scientists and a lot of people in general. Okay. Now, as I've mentioned, near-death experiences are basically people dying, having an experience, and coming back. So, in order to have a near-death experience, you have to not have vital signs. Okay, you have to be literally dead, at least for a certain amount of time. In near-death experiences, a lot of things that people encounter are either religious or spiritual or mystical. Many people who have had near-death experiences experience profound life or personality changes. Most NDEs are positive and euphoric, which means, people go to what we would know as heaven. However, there are a few people that have been to hell as part of their NDE. And it's estimated that maybe 1 in 5 people who experiences clinical death and resuscitation, maybe 1 in 5 of them experience an NDE. Now, during near-death experiences, common phenomena that are experienced include obviously an awareness of being dead, a sense of peace, well-being, and other positive emotions, a sense of removal from the world, and an intense feeling of unconditional love and acceptance. People also are generally aware that their soul has traveled outside of their body. Many people travel through a tunnel on their way to heaven. And then a lot of people report talking to a light being. Some people encounter loved ones that have passed on, but typically there's kind of like an angel or other figure that people encounter. A lot of people also report that they received a life review. So they go up to heaven, basically, and they're shown their entire life and, how they lived their life and so on. So there's kind of a comprehensive life review that many people experience. And then a lot of people are often given the choice, like, do you want to stay here or do you want to go back? And for the people that choose to go back, they suddenly find themselves back in their body as if nothing ever happened. Okay, so that's kind of what near-death experiences are. In a nutshell, it's someone who dies, typically goes to heaven. They have a life review. They talk to an angel. They talk to some loved ones, whatever, and then they come back. Okay, so that's kind of near-death experiences in a nutshell. Now, the interesting thing is when you compare these to Torah teachings, there's a lot of correspondences. Okay, so there's someone named Avner Stein who I've talked to. He's been documenting parallels between Jewish sources and near-death experiences. Okay, so he's noted that there's a lot of similar teachings here. Okay, people who have had near-death experiences typically say that it's our job to bring heaven down to earth through positive action. Not to be afraid because everything's in God's hands. Um, being grateful and positive for the earthly experience. Not being mindful of not hurting others with our speech. Not thinking negative thoughts about one another. Everyone having a divine spark. Us having free will here on earth. Things like karma and reincarnation also come up. The purpose of life comes up. A big theme that people realize in near-death experiences are that we're here to overcome challenges. Okay? And so Avner has put together a pretty comprehensive list of things that people learn in near-death experiences and also things that the Torah teaches. So I've got a link to this webpage in the description of the video if you want to read into it a little bit more deeply. But basically, there's a lot of correspondences between Torah and near-death experience testimonials. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to focus on a little bit is the concept of a life review. Okay, so as you might imagine in biblical and Torah thought, there's a bit of an emphasis on judgment and accounting. Okay, every soul is going to have to give an accounting when they die and go back to the spiritual realms. Okay, like they have to account for how they lived their life, the good that they did, the bad that they did. There needs to be kind of a full accounting. And this is typically what we find in near-death experience testimonials. People report having a life review. Okay? And so one of the ways that this is phrased in Judaism is, the spiritual worlds or heaven or whatever you want to call it. We call it Olam HaEmet, or the world of truth. Because once your soul gets to the world of truth, you can clearly recognize your strengths and your shortcomings and see how you lived your life versus how you could have lived your life. Okay, so the life review is really kind of a truth mechanism. Okay, because here on earth, it's very easy for people to delude themselves or lie to themselves or create illusions in their own mind and so on. But when you die and you go to the spiritual worlds, there's no more lies. There's no more illusions. There's only, truth. And for some people, unfortunately, it's a bit of a cold, hard truth. And for all of us, there's a mixed bag because, everyone causes pain to another human being, at least at some point. And so we have to just, be accountable for that. And that can be tough for a lot of people. Now, I want to expand a little bit here on the concept of the world of truth, because I think that this is a very interesting concept, and it leads to, a form of meditation or a form of contemplation, which I think could be spiritually beneficial to people. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to have to draw a little bit on Kabbalah, okay? Because in Kabbalah, one of the words for God is Or Ein Sof, or infinite light. Okay, and so basically, God is, in some form, infinite light, infinite love, infinite everything. Okay? In order to create our world, God contracted himself, or basically created space for a world which has darkness in it and the light of God is not readily apparent. Okay, and the reason for this is to give us the conditions for genuine free will. Okay, And so, through our free will decisions, we gain spiritual merit and spiritual lessons that we will enjoy in Olam Haba, the world to come, also known as Olam Ha'emet, the world of truth. Okay, now this is the really interesting thing. Okay, when a soul leaves this world, okay, when it leaves the world of illusion, the Or Ein Sof is all that exists. Okay, and so the spiritual world outside of our universe is the world of truth. It's where God truly resides. Okay, and the darkness that we encounter in this world is an illusion and a distraction from the truth. And a lot of people, to use a matrix metaphor, a lot of people are blue pilled. They took the blue pill or they were never exposed to the red pill. Okay, and so a lot of people live their entire lives on this planet not realizing what lies beyond. Okay, they don't necessarily know that God exists. They don't know about the love and acceptance that exists outside of this world. Okay, we're just kind of, a lot of people are just kind of trapped in the illusion. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play you a few clips from near-death experience testimonials to give you an idea of the love and compassion and acceptance that exists beyond our world. Okay, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the implications of this.
Movie on an old-fashioned movie reel, and it was moving very quickly, and it was my life from the time I was a baby until the time I died that day in the backyard. And I watched it, and it seemed like it was over really, really fast, and I had no sense of judgment. I had no sense of anything except I thought it was really short, and I thought, "Wow, something's missing," and my life must have been really boring because that was over very quick. I'd always been taught that there was judgment, and that did not happen. There was no judgment. I was just loved so completely, and I was so accepted, and I had never experienced any of that before, and it was just such huge love. And so I learned God didn't judge me. That huge loving presence that was behind me was what as I knew was God. And then my brothers and all of those people, they just loved me. There wasn't anybody judging me or condemning me or anything like that.
And with that thought, I found myself going straight through the ceiling and into a very, very dark tunnel, complete darkness. And I'm traveling almost at the speed of light. I come around a corner and I could see the exit out of the darkness. And it was at first a kaleidoscope of brilliant light. But as I drew closer and I was about to enter it, the brilliance turned into crystal clear white light. And that moment when I merged with the light, I have no words, not in any language, that can acutely describe the feeling of love, the feeling of light, the feeling of acceptance.
This is where I first remember who I was again, because I was just part of love and light and happiness and joy. And then it was almost like a flickering screen where he would bring me to events in my life. And they showed me all the events of my life, all the good events of my life, all the good that I've ever done, the good deeds that I've done for people, the taking care of my friends growing up. But on and on for the good. They showed me the good things I did in my life, the good things. And then all of a sudden now, they showed me the wrong things that I've done in my life. And the wrong or bad, let's call it, things that I believe we all do in our lives at times. You don't only know what the wrong is when you're there experiencing that, you feel the hurt and pain that you actually put onto someone else. Like, I'll never forget the feeling I had when I left my first wife.
Okay, so as you can tell, when people cross over, they experience and feel a love like they've never felt before. Okay, and that is the Or Ein Sof. That's the infinite light. And that is also Olam HaEmet, the world of truth. Okay, so the truth, the real reality, I suppose you could say, the real reality is filled with love and compassion and light. That's the true reality. Okay? And then our world is kind of this illusory world, almost like a video game, where there's darkness and struggle and pain and all of those things. But that's not the, I guess you could say, the truth. That's not what actually exists in the spiritual worlds. Okay? These things like pain and darkness and so on are illusory. Okay? They're illusions. They're illusions. Okay, and so this brings me to the meditation that I think might be helpful. And basically, I don't necessarily have, a guideline on how to meditate on this. But at least for me, cultivating a realization that we're kind of in a video game, okay? We're kind of in a concealment or an illusion, right? And all of the bad things that happen in the world and the bad things that happen to us and so on, these things are actually illusions, okay? And just beyond the, the physical world is Olam HaEmet, the world of truth. And in the world of truth, okay, there is only love, there is only light, okay? And that exists just beyond our perception, okay? If you imagine putting your hands up against like some saran wrap or something, like some cling wrap, and just moving your hands through the cling wrap to get to the other side, that's kind of what it's like, okay? Like the world of truth is imminent. It's present just beyond our traditional awareness of things. Okay, now the really interesting thing is when you look at the Talmud, okay, they talk about the imminence of Olam HaMet in the sense that it lies just beyond our physical world. Okay, so in Tractate Hagiga 15a, it says, the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. Okay, and then later on it says, the Gemara asks, how much is the gap between the upper waters, the heavens, and the lower waters? Okay, our physical existence. Rav Aha Bar Yaakov said, like the thickness of a thread. And the rabbi said, like the gap between the boards of a bridge. Mar Zutra, and some say it was Rav Ashi, said, like two robes spread over the other with a slight gap in between. And some said, like two cups placed upon one another. Okay, so in the Talmud, the rabbis are basically saying what I'm saying. The spiritual world, Olam HaEmet, okay, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, the infinite love, it is just beyond our physical concealment. Okay, it's just beyond the physical world. And for me personally, the more that I meditate on this and the more that I try to cultivate in awareness of the love that exists just beyond, what we can immediately see and sense, I found it's been really helpful. And, when it comes to near-death experiences, the more testimonials you watch, there's channels on YouTube that have them, the more of those you watch, the more you get to hear about what people's experience of God and the Or Ein Sof is like. Okay, and I think it's really special. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I might do some more in-depth explorations of near-death experiences, but I figured I would just share this for now and see what people think. So anyway, thank you very much. And if you liked this, I've got a book on Amazon, Ticket to Heaven, link in description, and I've got a whole bunch of different things on my channel related to Torah and physics and Kabbalah and so on. So yeah, like and subscribe.